Yo, what's good, family? Welcome to another episode of the Late Night Traffic Report with your boy, Mr. Sincere.
And I'm your girl, Kate Callie.
Tonight, we have a good one.
Really?
Marriage and mayhem. So, tonight's discussion, it's going to be very raw, unfiltered, and the untold truths about being married with children and the sacrifices that comes along with it. Oftentimes, raising children, you have to sacrifice your marriage as a whole. So the movies tend to show us the perfect family, the perfect marriage, right? And tonight we're going to peel that back and actually talk about the realistic version of how hard and challenging it is to be married with kids.
Yeah.
What happens when you wake up 3 o'clock in the morning to a crying baby? Bills are unpaid. A lot of other challenges you're facing.
Yeah.
And you wake up and you look to the left of you, you see your partner sleep, unbothered.
Yeah, unbothered.
Ignoring the child crying. And on top of that, you and them have not had a conversation about anything for the last 2 to 3 weeks. What do we do in situations like that? How do you keep fighting for us or the marriage when the kids have to come first? Or do they?
Yeah, no, that's powerful. And I think, I would take it a step further when, marriage, no one really talks about when marriage becomes maintenance,
Yeah.
We're just looking at it as something as, routine, something that we have to do, but it really has to be something that we want to do, right? A lot of times marriage can feel like a second, or raising kids rather, can feel like a second job, right? But, I think today's discussion, we're not here to, bash love, because we love. We're also not here to bash, being married and raising kids, because obviously we're doing that, right? But what we want to get out of today's discussion is have an honest conversation about how, we really navigate, and how do you really fight for your marriage, right? When we're balancing kids, stress, and other stresses of the world. How do we fight for each other when it feels like, the world is really pulling us apart in a way? It feels like that, but how do you build that marriage, build that core, build that togetherness that keeps you together?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think at the end of the day, we all took these vows and said for better or worse. But most of us could never imagine that, worse seems, or worse becomes, the quietness between you and your partner, the lack of communication, the loneliness, even when there's a full house of, yourself and children.
Yeah.
Being married with children, it can become a point where resentment really lives in the relationship, because you both feel like you're bound to these roles.
Right.
That most times neither of you probably signed up for when you were saying I do. So how do we address that? How do you continue to fight for your relationship, your marriage, when again, expectations are the kids come first?
Yeah. I think that's hard. I think it's hard, but I think how we do that is, by prioritizing your marriage first, right? Or prioritizing your marriage over your children. But first, obviously, if you are a believer, you need to prioritize God first and have Him as in the center of your marriage. But then, obviously your marriage has to be priority over your children, because if you guys have a healthy, strong relationship in marriage, one, that's a good visual and illustration for your children. And then also you're happier. You're happier if you have a great marriage, great communication. You guys are balancing probably priorities and things, navigating things together versus it being, the mom or the husband are doing, things majority, because I will give it up for all of the house husbands and all of that, because we know that it's not just, women holding it down as far as the nurturing and taking care of children, or kind of being kind of the lead in the home front. Sometimes we have these different family dynamics and structures. Sometimes we have men that are kind of stay-at-home dads or going to school, those types of things, and raising kids and things like, kind of being in the forefront. But I think prioritizing, we have to prioritize your marriage first. And I think the other thing is the prioritization has to stay strong, right? You can start off, especially when you're first dating, especially with no kids, right? Date night, movies, and all this stuff. That's exciting, it's fun, and all of that
But I
stuff.
think you have to keep that same
You have to keep the
energy.
same energy, but it's hard.
And when you say prioritizing,
Mm-hmm.
I think that, you and your spouse, you have to say that our marriage comes first
You do.
for the betterment of our kids.
You have to look at it that
And
way.
you have to almost be selfish
Selfish.
and to an extent, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to put your marriage 1st,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because resentment is the quiet killer of most marriages, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
when I'm talking about resentment, when you start getting into scorekeeping, you didn't take out the trash, you didn't fold the clothes,
Yeah.
you didn't whatever you didn't do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Then you start again, keeping score.
Yeah.
And then what happens is you start going to bed, quietly but very upset,
Yeah.
right? We,
Yeah.
in marriages, we often say, oh, we're good when we're really not.
Yeah.
You have that resentment in the back of your head for whatever reason. Like I said, whether it's, you're being bound to a role that you didn't necessarily sign up for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or an expectation that you didn't sign up for. So I think prioritization, I think communication is key. I think before you introduce kids into the relationship or a marriage,
Yeah.
I think it's essential that you sit down and you talk, because I think a lot of times, you take the vows, you do what you do, you then get pregnant and you bring kids in, and oftentimes a lot of marriages have not even had the conversation. What type of parent are you?
Yeah.
How do you want to discipline the kids? How do you see this relationship working with the additions, hence the kids?
That's a really good point.
And I think that a lot of people don't have those conversations because we assume, and I'm speaking from a man's perspective, a lot of men assume that everything's going to stay the same. You're going to find time for me, right? And I think for the guys, I think another thing, this is one thing, we're going to jump to the tips a little bit earlier in this episode. But one of the things that I do is I reduce your workload, right?
Mm-hmm.
You and I both have very great careers. If I'm expecting intimacy tonight, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to clear the board, so you ain't have no excuses not to fulfill the promise, right?
Fulfill the promise.
You know what I mean? So I think a lot of guys, you can't just sit at home and be ready with with your beef out or ready to go, and the kids still haven't been fed. They need to be in the bed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So,
but you're not helping with any.
You're
of
not
those
helping with
things.
anything.
Yeah.
And like at the end of the day, this is a tip. This is a gem for all my young boys who just got married or whatever, or just recently married. You got to reduce the workload if you're trying to explode.
You heard it. You heard it from him. No, but
you do.
But all jokes aside, that is very sound advice from Mrs. Sencere. And I think, I guess things that I would say for the ladies on the flip side to kind of support or go in parallel with what you said is, I think as mothers, we have to be willing to give up some of the workload. I think so many times we feel like we have to be super women and sheroes, which we are, but we don't have to do it by doing everything, right? We're leaders. Delegate. Let your husbands help. You know, and some things that we do. We have shared calendars. You have to do a lot of reminders. But you say, hey, there's a parent teacher conference coming up. Clear your schedule. What's your schedule? Or there's, you can schedule the conference. Hey, what time works for you? Right. So it's not just you feeling like, you're the one going and hearing what's going on with the child and what they need and how to support them. It really has to be a team effort as much as you can, because you are a team, right? So I think as mothers, we just have to be willing to share the workload. I mean, sometimes I think, I know there's things that you just want to do, you feel like you can do it better and all of that good stuff. But I think if you keep that mentality, anyone naturally is going to be like, oh, you got it.
Yeah, but I want to talk about, the things specifically that both both involved have to do, right?
Okay. Okay.
Um, you have to actively continue to date.
Oh, that's important.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
You gotta carve out, time and places for emotional and physical intimacy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because I think what happens is when you just get caught up in just being a parent so much, you
Hmm.
neglect or you forget about that you're somebody's wife or somebody's husband.
Yeah.
And again, I'm harping on resentment because that's a real killer of marriages.
Hmm.
It's the silent killer of marriages. So I think that you have to also have time where you and your spouse learn each other again. And I think the most key, um, I think the most keen advice that I would give someone is you have to remain friends.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you're my best friend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And what that means is you're not my best friend just because you're my wife.
Right.
You're my best friend because we can have conversations that have nothing to do with our children or nothing to do with the household from an expense perspective or anything to do with just
Yeah.
parenting.
Right.
Me and you can genuinely have open and honest conversations. And
Yeah.
we talk a lot about a
Hmm.
variety of different things. And I think that is essential. It's a must have in a relationship
Yeah.
when you have children, or just a relationship, period, but even more so
When you,
when you have
yeah.
children, because there's a lot of emphasis, a lot of focus on school, getting them back and forth. If they participate in any, after school
Activity.
activities, or they're part
Yeah.
of any clubs, if they take taekwondo, if they, whatever they may be into, the things that's outside of normal school hours, we tend to make that priority, right?
Yeah.
And if that's the only thing you're talking about, you become complacent. And really, what it is just a routine. You're playing a role at that point.
Right. Right. So let's talk about, because I know one thing that, and I'm sure people, watching this, they're saying, oh, prioritizing your marriage and do date nights and stuff. Let's talk about, dynamics in family structures where parents may not have, i.e., resources, and resources could be funds, resources could mean access to safe childcare, like meaning people that you want to leave and feel safe leaving your child with. So I think there are people that are in that space, like if they've just moved to a new town, they don't have as many connections. But let's talk about ideas or how you can connect in creative ways, like things in the house, or let's talk about, I can start if you don't have any, I can start or something. So I think one thing I would say is find things that you can do maybe after your kids go to bed. Maybe also, maybe doing, dinners in home, cooking together. I know that's something that we'd like to do. basically meaning that date night does not always mean like going out. It can just mean connecting with each other, doing something in the home. So what do you think?
I think, yeah, you have to be creative. I think, some people have a village that can help them raise their kids, and then others do not. I think it really goes back again to communication and setting expectations, clear
Yeah.
expectations. And one of those expectations is that both you and your spouse have to say that the most important thing is our marriage,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because once
Sure.
those kids grow up and leave, it's going to be you two again.
You too. Yeah.
Do you understand that there's a real issue with empty nesters at this point because they've been living and being in marriages just for the sake of their kids, and now their kids are no longer in the house, in the nest, and it's weird,
Yeah.
right? It
Yeah.
went from a very noisy environment
Yeah.
to absolute silence. And what a lot of people are discovering is, I don't even fucking know who you are at this point.
Right.
I don't remember who you are. So I think that, to your point, yeah, you have to get creative, right? You can't go out every time. For men, if you're preparing a dinner together, Tetcher, be playful. I mean, you have to be. You have to keep that spark.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's something that, when you wake up every day as husband and wife, it's a choice that you make.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
every day you have to consistently and constantly choose your spouse, your significant other.
Yeah.
You just have to. The kids are absolutely important. I don't want anyone
Yeah.
to say that I'm like, fuck them kids, because I'm not saying that. What I'm
No.
saying is,
We love the kids.
we love our kids and you should love yours, but you have to understand that you are somebody before your children
You'll be someone
and
after
you'll be someone
after
after.
they leave.
And I think
Yeah.
that that's the biggest challenge. When you put your kids first in every sense of the word, every sense of the way, it really puts a lot of stress on being able to maintain or recapture who you were, who we were together
Yeah.
prior to having children.
Yeah.
And I think that, that's like I said, that's pivotal, that's essential. That's essential, for you to be able to maintain a healthy relationship, a healthy marriage. Having kids doesn't mean that your relationship, your marriage, whether it's, from an intimacy perspective, physical, emotionally, mentally, what have you, doesn't mean that you throw that on the back burner. It just doesn't, right? It means that you have to be a little bit more creative, but you definitely have to establish me time or we time, right? And I think that, a lot of couples that experience, problems, they're just so 100% invested in their children until they wake up one day and they don't even recognize the person who they're with. They're really co-parenting with a stranger at this point because one or both have lost their identity into being great parents. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that, setting those boundaries, right? Communicating and communicating often, making it fun to keep the spark, to keep that playfulness with one another, despite having or in spite of having kids, right? It's time for you that you got to put the kids to sleep and you got to carve out some time where it's just about you and your spouse.
Right. Right. No, I think you said a lot. I agree. Um, I think the biggest, takeaways I think from our discussion today is prioritizing your marriage, right?
Absolutely.
Obviously there's things and responsibilities that we have to and we will do for our children. Just to echo what you said, is not that we're not, the kids are not prioritized, but definitely you have to feed and give, back to your marriage,
Date night is a must. Date night is CPR to your relationship, to
Right.
your marriage.
It really is.
Date night. You don't want to get to a point where, again, you feel stuck in these roles that you didn't necessarily sign up for. And I think most importantly, for men,
Mm-hmm.
and while married and when you have kids, I mean, we talked about this. I think we do a great job of making time for one another. But I asked you before one time, I said, when you wake up in the morning, what are the first things you think about? Who is the first person you think about? And I'm not going to ask you to go through your list.
I'll tell you what it is.
But no, look,
You don't want me
it's
to tell
fine.
you?
No, it's
I
fine.
can tell them too.
But the difference between men and women are, I was like eighth on the fucking list.
No.
And then I had to actually remind you of me.
No.
You know what I mean? But men, when we wake up, the
Not
first thing we do is we're trying to figure out, how can I maintain everything that I built, everything that I've obtained for you and the kids.
Yeah.
So you all are the first things, the first people that we think about.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we are the last. So my point is this. I think for guys, for men, we don't want to get to the point where we feel like the only role we play is the provider.
Yeah.
In essence, the only role we play is we're a check. You know what I mean? And I think on the flip side, for a lot of women, I think in a relationship, when you prioritize the kids, I think a lot of women probably feel like they're not seen by their husband. It's expected that, okay, I'm the mom, I'm going to be the nurturer, I'm going to do all these things. And I think that's very unhealthy because, again, I'm going to go back to it. Resentment is the silent killer of marriages.
Yeah. 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 No, I agree. And I think, another thing we should probably add to our list, obviously prioritizing, but it's also communication. And I'll kind
I
of,
said that earlier.
I know you did. So I'm just kind of, I'm kind of doing a little recap. But I think communication, so I echo what you said, is communication. But I also think, where communication comes is saying that, hey, I need help. Hey, can you do this? Instead of me trying to figure out how to take the child to a doctor's appointment, taekwondo, and soccer practice, I say, hey, can you take him to the soccer practice and I'll pick him up and I'll take him to taekwondo or whatever.
But I don't think that's happening in most marriages, right?
No,
I think
that's where it leads to resentment because then I've sat up here, I haven't communicated.
And scorekeeping.
Right. So I've done all the three things and I do all the three things. So now throughout the course of our marriage, I'm stuck or not stuck, but I'm doing the three things. I'm doing all of those things versus if we sat down, had a conversation because, I don't think it's always that the men don't want to do it or aren't capable because obviously you married him. You got to think he's a great partner, right? It's not that they're not capable or willing. I do think sometimes that it is not that we carve out that space because I guess we might feel you see me over here doing all these things. Why aren't you coming? So it goes back to your point. It's about what I don't know. I'm not going to try to quote the little quote you gave, but you got to help out if you want other things to happen and just not even just for that. If you just want to build a partnership. Marriage is about partnership. You shouldn't see, I shouldn't see you doing 50 things and not offering to help you out either. So I think it kind of, it definitely goes both ways. So I definitely think, putting your marriage first, communication, and being willing and able to speak up when you need help and you need help prioritizing things and getting things done to support the kids. It's key.
Yeah, I think that, I don't think it's impossible to do this. Obviously, we're not perfect, but I think we do a good job of balancing and prioritizing. I think, again, being married with children, I think it's not for the weak. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah.
You got to be very strong.
Yeah.
You got to give 110% of yourself,
Yeah.
because the reality is there's a lot of noise out there. It
There's a
really
lot.
is. And what I mean by noise is just the everyday hustle and bustle, getting the kids from point A to B to C, then back
Yeah.
home safely, doing homework, cooking, making sure everybody, takes showers or baths or whatever their preference is, reading at night, making sure, it's just a lot. And I think that it's very easy to put your relationship eighth,
Yeah. On the back burner.
eighth on the priority list. But I think at the end of the
Yeah.
day, again, I think really prioritizing and putting your marriage first makes you better parents. And it
Yeah.
makes you, it equips you better to handle that noise I just described.
Yeah.
Because again, I mean, it's very easy, and there's a lot of other distractions being married. Period. That comes along with being married.
Yeah.
And if you have the external factors, and now you've created this somewhat hostile environment
Mm-hmm.
in your house,
Yeah.
that's a remedy for bad things to happen. And I think again, from a marriage perspective, l- relearning how to be a friend to your spouse,
Yeah.
right? I think that's key, right?
Yeah.
And then choosing every day, choosing to be committed to your spouse,
Yeah.
not just committed to the kids, and because I think a lot of times a lot of people get comfortable in routine,
Yeah.
right? And that's what
Yeah.
it becomes. It becomes routine.
Human nature.
And then 18 years later, you look up again and be like, who the fuck is this person? I don't like this person.
And then
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Do I know you?
Yeah.
And is it your children's fault or your child? No, it's not. It's your fault.
It was, yeah.
You know
made
what I'm
that
saying?
choice.
Because these are all outcomes of decisions that you made or did not make.
Yeah. And I think another thing that I think about when you say that, prioritizing your marriage, communication, and those types of things, and, your spouse being able to communicate with them and talk about things outside of the,
Yeah, because you can't talk about the
fam-
shit that's going on in the house.
right. Because that's not going to be fun typically, right?
Right.
But I think you also, when you're married, when you're thinking about navigating the space and finding someone to marry, I think you also have to make sure, because I think sometimes we marry or end up being with someone, I hate to say this, that we don't like spending time with.
I don't really think that's true.
I think sometimes, or you grow, maybe that resentment sets in. So my point is, I think that's what prevents sometimes people from doing the date nights, doing it, because it's not always that we don't have, we're not carving the time out, but it could be that we're avoiding it sometimes too, because we haven't addressed the unspoken of resentment and things like that. So my point is, it goes back to, if you're friends first, that will help you kind of navigate some of the, and not
Well,
set
I
into
hope
some of
most
that.
people that's getting married are friends.
People get married for different reasons.
Well, yeah, people do a whole lot of shit for different reasons. But we don't speak in absolutes. But what I'm saying is, I don't think people, I think at some point, or at least you were under the impression that you thought this person was your friend,
Yeah.
right? I think in any
You would
strong
hope.
marriage, you have to be friends first before you do.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about traditional marriages. I'm not talking about marriages that, mail in order brides and, fixed marriages and shit like that. I'm talking about real marriages when you actually do it and God is at the forefront of
Yeah.
your union. That's the marriage I'm talking about. And I think that most people, I'm not saying that there are no couples out there that, married each other and didn't like each other, but I just think that's really, really goofy. Why would you do that, right? Because in order for your marriage to stand the test of time, you have to like that person.
And I think that's the fundamental.
You have to like that
point.
person.
Yeah.
And even if you love that person, love ain't enough to keep you in a marriage.
Right.
It's just not. Like, you have to genuinely like that person. you have to like talking to them
Right.
just about anything,
Right.
and
Yeah.
definitely not your children. If that's already a pain point, like why would you bring that up?
Right.
So
Right.
when we're talking about, carving out space and time, you shouldn't talk about anything in the house. Even if you're in the house, you should talk about something that kind of, takes your mind off
Yeah.
of the noise and the loudness of your house with your kids and dealing with the day to day, struggles. So I think that ideally you want to really create a space where you can kind of escape the life that you're living day to
Mm-hmm.
day.
Yeah.
At least that's what we do. You know what I mean? When we go out, we have date night. Our children are the last, I don't want to say that, last day on our mind.
I'll say amen to that.
We love
They pretty
y'all.
damn close to the last day on our mind. One, we have a support system somewhat.
Right.
But my point is, it needs to be all about you and your spouse
Yeah.
that time, right?
Yeah.
And because I think, healthy relationships and healthy marriages with children, I think what really keeps you focused and in tune and emotionally connected.
Mm-hmm.
You are, I don't want to say reliving the past, but you always see that person in that light, the thing that
How
attracted,
you in
the
the
thing that
beginning.
attracted you to them in the first
In
place,
the
right?
beginning.
And
Yeah.
because you're really trying to recapture us. And I think that marriages that do that, I think those are ones that if you're successful in doing that,
Yeah.
and look, I'm not saying if you've been married for 20 years, you expect the person to look the same way. And what I'm saying is, you want to recapture that magic, that spark, right? Whatever it may be, the
Right.
way she looks at you, or the way you look at her, or the way you caress her, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
I think that's your path to good
Yeah.
when shit goes bad. You know what I mean?
That helps you
Yeah.
and you're right. I think that is, and I've shared this with people, especially when they're new in their relationship, they're just dating, is, savor and remember that time, because those times will be what, and to your point, will be what you lean towards, and you're almost trying to get back, which, you probably, never get back like the first time, but you are still searching and yearning to get back to that feeling of how you guys felt when you first met and you're in love and it's the Google eyes and all of that stuff, so that's why it's really important too when you are dating, that you enjoy each other as much as you can, because when you are married with kids and parenting and all that good stuff, those are the things that you're going to reflect back. So you got to have those good times to reflect back on, because it helps. It almost becomes your like guiding star and your compass to kind of guide you guys back to each other. So if you don't ever have that space and that season in your relationship, it's kind of hard to say, okay, what are we trying to get back to? I think too, one thing, for marriage, I think in just marriage in general, you have to be realistic about what marriage is and what marriage isn't. I think a lot of times, especially when you're, depending on how you navigate to marriage and, the prep that you put into marriage, and if you do counseling and things of that nature, how much, you put the work you put in. I think you really have to understand that your marriage is going to go through different seasons,
For sure.
just like your life, right? But now you're going to navigate these seasons with another person,
Yeah.
who our seasons may not always align. You may be in one season before I get there, then I catch up, vice versa, vice versa. But I
And
think,
additionally, add then kids
and they have their seed, right? So
that
everybody's
comes with additional complexities.
and you're right. So when you then add children, that's a new season. But I think the biggest thing is understanding that, because I think for me, I'm a reflective person, and I think, you know, understanding that and being almost not prepared, because you can't necessarily be prepared, but just understanding that this is what's happening is normal to some degree. I think, these things happen in our lives and we start feeling different. I mean, there's a period of time where people say, in marriages you feel like roommates, right? I'm not going to say it's normal, but maybe it is. You go through kind of everything isn't going to be all high. There are low points in marriages too. And I think people don't really talk about that, especially sometimes, I hate to say it, us married folks sometimes don't talk about that. Sometimes it's not always, glitz and glamour, and that's okay. That's okay because that's how life is. So why is the beauty of it is with marriage is you have that person to lean on, navigate with, and you're still standing by that person even through the low points. I'm not giving up on you, but it's not the best moment, not the best period, but we're going to work through it. And I think just being aware and having awareness around, I think we need to, this relates to the topic that we're talking about with kids, because kids brings about, having children brings about a new season in your marriage. And I think we need to be a lot more upfront and vocal about marriage is a process. It's a journey.
And I think it's about grace, extending grace.
Oh yeah, very much so.
To your significant other.
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
as you mentioned, adding kids, that's a different season
Yeah.
in your relationship. That
Yeah.
adds additional complexities. I think that being on the same page as much as you possibly can, because if anybody tell you that they're 100% aligned, they're lying.
Two different individuals.
You're two different individuals. You have two different perspectives. In most situations, you come from two different backgrounds in life,
Right.
and upbringing, right? So I think that, giving grace, right? Giving grace and being patient.
Yeah.
Clearly you have to be patient with the kids because they'll get on your damn nerves. But also having patience with your spouse.
Yeah.
Again, all roads to a successful marriage, you have to go the communication route.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
All roads, all positive roads. You must have great communication.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's true.
Because having expectations that you haven't communicated, that's not a successful strategy in a relationship.
Yeah.
And, what we said earlier as far as, keeping those feelings inside without voicing them, without being open and transparent about them. We talked about resentment a lot. Again, resentment is the silent killer of marriages.
Yeah.
And the point that I want to make real quick is I think that if you're not good, then you need to communicate that you're not good.
Right.
Right? You don't want to give off, you don't want to present something that's not true. And what I mean by that is when you're dealing with children in the mix, if you want your significant other to do more of something or less of something, you have to communicate it.
Yeah.
You absolutely have to communicate it. Because when that person feels or loneliness creeps into the equation, and you can be lonely with a house full of people.
Yeah. Right.
You want to address that.
Yeah.
You want to be vocal about it. You want to give them the opportunity or afford them the opportunity to course correct.
Yeah.
Right? I can't fix something that I'm not aware of. Right?
Right.
And I think that, oftentimes, in marriage with children, there's so much going on.
Yeah.
Right? There's so much going on. Instead of taking a minute or 5 minutes or whatever, one thing that we do, contentious topics that we may have or want to talk about, we time cap it, right?
Yeah.
We time cap it. If it's going to be 15 minutes, we talk about it 15 minutes. You say what you need to say. I say what I need to say. And when the buzzer goes off, we're done.
Right.
We move on. Right. And I think that a lot of relationships, they don't do that. Right. They harbor this resentment again, these feelings, whether it's, score keeping, right? I did this. I took out the trash. I cut the grass. I did this. I cooked 2 nights in a row or 4 nights in a row. I did the laundry. I did this. Blah 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 blah. Right.
Right.
And that's not a healthy relationship.
No.
And I think that with children, because that's what we're talking about, right? With children and how they impact the relationship.
Yeah.
I think that you have to have that dialogue, that healthy dialogue, to ensure that you and your spouse are on the same page.
Yeah.
But I also think that you have to have these conversations because, I think a lot of parents are naive, and there are marriages that solely surviving on the strength of not wanting to destroy their kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I think staying in a marriage for just for the sake of your kids, I think that's a horrible thing to do. And the reason why I say that is sometimes we're so caught up in our own shit, whether it's bickering between one another or resentment or ill feelings towards each other, we fail to realize that the children know it
Oh, they
immediately.
Yeah, they do.
They knew it all along.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a lot of times in situations in marriages, people say that I'm staying, for the sake of my children. That's really like the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
And,
because it impacts them because they see it,
it does.
like you said.
And kids pick up on emotions and vibes and they understand, they read body language. If they don't read anybody else's, they know how to read their parents. Kids are very insightful like that, right? And if they sense, any tension, anything, they'll come up and ask you or, make a comment about it. So my point is, I think that, when you have children, I think the communication doesn't stop with just you and your significant other.
Yeah.
You have to extend that communication to your children, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, yes, you need to prioritize your marriage first, which ultimately will help you be better parents to your children. But you also need to incorporate them in it too, and maybe not in specific details or things that's not appropriate for them to talk about. But I think that you need to incorporate it in, like, hey, mommy and daddy wants to go out tonight, or whatever the case may be. Not asking their permission, but my point is letting them know that it's priority, it's important that we have alone time.
Like establishing the boundary and letting communicate. Obviously, at age appropriate times and ways.
Well,
but
I wasn't saying let a 6-year-old stay at home, but maybe you can take them to their grandmothers or grandfathers. Hey, this is a perfect weekend for you to go somewhere else.
Shout out to all the grandparents, aunties, uncles.
And if they're older, hey, this is the perfect weekend for your ass to stay at one of your friends' house.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, and I think, this is a good point, but I also think, that time away and independence from the parents in healthy ways is good for the kids too. Because I think, they probably want to be away from us too, and have just seeing the world differently or having new experiences with other people. And, grandpa teaches them this, grandma teaches that, auntie takes them here, these experiences and things that they're not going. So I really think that it's healthy for the children also to navigate, and have, exposure to things outside of, the family, obviously positive and good exposures, obviously. But so yes, I think that's key. And I think that's a very good point as far as like, talking to your children about it and why you're doing it, so they don't just think that you're just going off to have a good time. I mean, we are having a good time, but it's about more than that, and why that good time is important. And when we come back, we're going to be fired up and ready to go.
But it also sets boundaries and it also sets standards for them
on how when they
get
into their relationship,
decide to
if that's what they decide.
And that's what it's really always about. Like, as parents, we should always be given lessons, right? We should always be given lessons.
Right.
But I think that, I think we hit a lot of good points.
Yeah.
Again, if you don't take anything else from this this episode, stay away from resentment, right? And give a
Yeah.
lot of grace,
Right.
right?
Right.
But before we go, let's give some tips before we go. I mean,
Okay.
we can't end the show without giving some
We gotta get
tips.
some tips. Okay.
And listen,
Okay. And we
again,
given some along the way, but
we're giving some along the way, but I
okay.
mean, some of the tips can be some of the ones we've already given, just just as a takeaway, right?
Okay. Okay.
So give the married women some tips, some things that you do, some things that you recommend, and
Okay.
I'll do the same for the men.
Okay. I'll start with one that I already shared. Is to definitely allow our husbands to help, right? So allow and create space for him to help. I would say also um, keep it sexy, whatever that looks like for you within your marriage. Find and carve out spaces for that, and also self care. So a part of that sexiness is also you have to feel good and sexy about yourself. So it's not always. I mean, you obviously want your spouse to look at you and feel that way about you. But when it comes down to it, it really matters most about how we feel about ourselves. So also outside of all this, something that we haven't talked about, we got to prioritize self-care for us and carving out spaces for us to, you know, take care, go to the library, read some books, get our nails done, whatever, go to the spa, whatever that looks like for you, we have to carve that space out to replenish and give back to ourselves. So those would be, some of my tips. What do you have, Mr.
Yeah,
Sincere?
so for the men, what I would say is consistently date your wife,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Consistently date your wife. Create opportunities that you and your wife can be alone and try to recapture your pre-children days, right? And what I mean by that is, create an environment and opportunities that you can constantly remind her of why she chose you and why you chose her. Um, Again, and I wasn't being funny. This is a simple equation that all men should adopt.
Here we go.
If you want to explode, you have to reduce the workload. You can't expect, especially if you have a working wife, for her to work however many hours a day she works, have to come home, cook,
Yeah.
clean, homework, laundry, and then you expect to get sexed at the end of the night. Brother, that's horrible math. The
You
math
gon'
ain't mathing.
you winning a lot of points with the ladies tonight,
What you
Mrs.
need to
Sincere.
do is remove those tasks off of her task list.
Remove them.
Remove them.
Remove them.
Because then she has no excuse,
No.
right? And a lot of men may be like, wow, I got to do all that because we're married. But you do. It ties back into what I said.
Yeah.
You have to consistently date your spouse. When you were dating her, didn't you reduce her workload? Didn't you roll out the red carpet for her?
You did.
Didn't you go above and beyond?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So another tip that I would give men is don't be afraid to communicate your frustrations.
That's something that you don't have a problem doing.
I absolutely do not. And the reason why I said that is, again, the resentment. If you keep it all bottled in,
Yeah.
like I said, you miss one good morning, one good night. You miss one kiss. You miss one touch. It goes by a week. Then it turns into a month. Then it turns into 3 months. Then it turns into 6 months.
That's a long time.
I mean, that ain't my problem, but I'm just saying. I mean, that's some people reality.
Yeah.
And what my point is, don't harvest or have these raw emotions and don't communicate them, right?
Yeah.
Again, if you don't communicate, then you haven't afforded her the opportunity to course correct.
Right.
And it ties back into some what we were saying earlier.
Mm-hmm.
A closed mouth don't get fed, meaning if you don't voice your issues, then they're not going to be addressed. They're not just going
Right.
to go away,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So the last thing that I would say that men have to do is men we have to do better in the sense of, not having expectations that our wife is just going to take care of it or just do it,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you made a very valid point earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
We do the majority of things for our children together,
Mm-hmm.
right? When there's parent teacher conferences, unless I'm out of town or wherever, out of the country or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I can't make it there, but everything that we can do together, we do it together, right?
Yeah.
For our children.
Yeah.
So the point I'm trying to make is, if you are a absent dad, even though you live in the house, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people
That's a
that's
real.
there that's not really present. You know what I mean?
That's
Just
real.
going through the emotions,
Right.
just a check or whatever the case may be, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you allow your children to depend 100% on your wife, then that's what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And if they depend 100% on your wife, then they're never going to come to you for anything.
Yeah.
And that ties back into what I said earlier about reducing the workload. What we've done a pretty good job is, I don't want to say it's 50-50, might be 60-40, right? But nevertheless, our children know that they can come to me for pretty much the same things that they can go to you for.
Mm-hmm.
And that establishes balance,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
our children are not going to just say, hey, I have to wait 4 hours until mom comes home or whatever the duration may be.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to come to me and they know that I got them.
Yeah.
So again, as a father, you have to be present. You have to show up. You have to be present. You have to forge your relationships with your children as well.
Yeah.
And it can't just be, dad is a check, dad is a wallet. I only come to dad when I want whatever it may be.
Right. Yeah. I like that because I think that also, I think you really, tied in and honed in on the message of, that balance. And it really, what you really tied in for me was the fact that only does that help with your relationship, right? It helps bring that balance and free up, balance the workload, but it also helps and iterates your relationship with your children too. And I think, shout out to all the dads, all the fathers out there. But I think, I think it's a real thing being, an absent, somewhat present. I mean, a present father, but somewhat
Still
absent,
absent.
rather. I think that's
Emotionally distant.
and I think that, it's probably some generational, history with that of how that sets in, because I think, historically, men were, working, bring home the check, and where's
Kids get the fuck away from me.
and you're right, you get the dinner, and they go watch TV, whatever they want to do for the rest of the night. But it wasn't helping with homework. It wasn't going to a parent teacher conference, going to a soccer game, none of that.
Yeah.
Because I've worked and I brought you home this check.
Yeah.
So now everybody else needs to get out my face.
Why we need to be social? What we need to have a relationship. All of this is a relationship.
But
everything you have.
Exactly. But obviously now we're in the modern family, just in the modern world. So that's not where we are. But I think some of that, especially in our communities, still somewhat kind of lives on. So I really want to acknowledge and give a shout out to all of the fathers that are actively present and actively continuing to work on that too. I think some of this I'm not a man, but I wonder if, depending on your experience and whether you had your father in your life or not, or how active that father was, you're kind of emulating what you saw. And if you didn't see anything positive, well, what am I emulating? So not giving the guys an excuse, just acknowledging that
Generational curse exists. Yeah.
Exactly. So we're breaking through those, and we're breaking down those obviously every day. So we're, very, very, very proud of that. So shout out to that. So one thing I do want to somewhat leave us with, and then I know we're going to wrap up because we're been chatting a lot. But I think another thing, and this is more so for both men and women to just consider, and I think this is probably a nice nugget to leave with at, somewhat at the end. In closing, this would be more for people that are still dating and considering marriage, or let's say rather married, newly married, depending on your situation, your circumstances, where you are in life. But I think it's really important to think about when you want to prioritize bringing children into your marriage and what that looks like when you do, because you talked about that, talking about parenting, because we'll do a whole nother show on parenting styles and how that plays a role in the differences in how you raise your children. But you got to be on one accord with that. But I think the biggest thing is agree to some degree on a time period where you guys just enjoy you when you get married. Because I think that's really, really important. I think for different factors, different reasons, sometimes
You have to have that foundation.
because if you don't, then you don't know the life that we were talking about of, the life that, we had pre-children, right? The life that we had and where it was solely about us and connecting with us. So I really think if you depend on your space, depending on your, where you are, if you can really consider carving out that time to really grow, learn, and just enjoy each other at the very beginning, I think is very key.
Absolutely.
Very key.
So I think we've
gotta go.
Yeah, we have
already?
to go. But
Okay,
I think we discussed a lot tonight again, as we always do. But I also think that we did leave, our viewers with some good gems, right? Some knowledge, some tips, right? And look, we are not, this is not our profession. We're just sharing, things that work with us and things we've seen. And I think at the end of the day, it just really comes back like, when you are married with children, you absolutely have to choose your marriage first. It has to be the main priority. It is the most important relationship to your family union. By far. So keep choosing each other every day. Keep creating time and safe places for physical, emotional, and mental intimacy. Be great parents to your kids, but be greater spouses and partners to one another. And I think if you continue to put yourself first, I think your relationship would be all right. Children are definitely a blessing. It's just you have to pick guardrails and you have to have boundaries. And you have to communicate, like what's the expectation? And as you go through life and you find yourself at different stations in your life, you have to adjust accordingly. But again, if you put your spouse first and you all remain friends, making being friends top of your list, right? I think that you'll be all right. Because we're all right as long as we continue to be best friends and continue to communicate and prioritize and let each other know that we see each other and that our feelings matter and that we are a priority. I think those are the foundation of having a fruitful and successful marriage while being parents.
While parenting.